Hello, and thank you for visiting Graphene Business Law. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please go ahead and click on the red subscribe button down below. Graphene regularly posts content for our main clientele, which is small business owners and entrepreneurs in Toronto and beyond. We also have a few other series, including this very one special series, however, focusing on questions students have about law school and helping bridge that gap between what you might be hearing in class as a student and the theories you're learning and the real world, if you will. Okay. So, and a lot of these questions, by the way, I get asked them from students on a regular basis, but I also, of course, remember being a student myself. So I'm able to discern, the more pressing questions, and that's what these videos are geared towards. Today's topic is that of discipline in law school. How do you get yourself to a place where you are feeling you've got the discipline it takes to stay on top of your work? What are some tools and tips to help you acquire that discipline? If that concept is something that's new to you, if you're coming from, a different background, if you want to build the discipline it takes, and law school has really surprised you by how much work it already requires of you. Whether you're in 1L, 2L, or 3L, law school is always throwing curves your way. In 1L, you're going to have the adjustment curve. In 2L, there's a big focus on finding employment. And in 3L, actually, many students start to already think about testing for the bar exam, which is voluminous at best in terms of the readings you'll be taking on and the work that's required to do really well. Bringing it back to the main topic of this video, discipline. How do you develop discipline? If you already feel you're a very disciplined student, you know what it takes to stay on top of your work and yourself, then this video is also helpful to you. Make sure you're on the right track and checking off all the boxes we're mentioning here. So that being said, let's start with tip number 1. I have a few tips here. And I'll also say I filmed other videos on the channel, including, how to thrive in 1L and how to do well big picture, how to do well conceptually. This video, you'll notice, has more specific suggestions, more practical suggestions. These are less big picture. These are specific, one item at a time style suggestions that once you're done this video, you'll already be able to incorporate them. Now, the first tip I have for developing and maintaining a sense of discipline in law school is one that regards time. Okay, time management. We hear the topic time management not only in school but also in practice, but what does it really mean? Okay, we all have distractions, and that's just a fact, but how do you get yourself to a place where you understand what time management is and you're able to monitor your own time management? My first time specific tip is time yourself when you are summarizing cases. Like I said, this video has practical suggestions because what's the bulk of what you're doing in law school? What's the bulk of what's examinable for you? Of course, is those cases and the ratios, what they stand for, distinguishing facts, etc. But it's cases. You have to know the cases the professor's talking about in class. Now, and that's not to say that's all you need to know, but again, we're keeping it specific here. I'm giving you a tip you'll be able to incorporate right when this video is over. In terms of timing yourself, this video, of course, applies to students, in law school in Ontario, in Canada, America, to students in most, jurisdictions of law school. I'll speak for Ontario, however. There's a lot of cases that are from certain levels of court that you're able to get through very quickly. Famously so, Supreme Court cases can be very long in Canada, and I'm sure in other countries as well, okay? But just because they're long doesn't mean that the same rules of time don't apply to them. My rule of thumb that I developed for myself in law school, and I've shared with others since then, and I've only ever heard positive feedback about it, is that if a case is taking you more than 20 minutes to understand the big picture, to smell what this case is going to be about in the case of those longer Supreme Court cases where 20 minutes might not be enough, because let's face it, sometimes there are hundreds of paragraphs. But big picture, if a case is taking you more than 20 minutes to understand the gist of it, something's up, okay? Because if you don't get it in 20 minutes, you're not going to get it at the hour or 2-hour mark. Something is missing as to your understanding of what this case was about. Cases also do give you a leg up. A lot of cases have a summary at the top. A lot of cases the judges frame very clearly the issues they're working on. And increasingly so, I've noticed the more recent cases, and by recent I don't mean a month or two, I mean decade or two of law, very nicely compartmentalize, facts, issues, analysis, application. And here and there you have position of the parties depending on the length of the case and whether the length allows for it or not, in terms of how the judge has decided and how the judge's own writing style is. But so if a case takes you more than 20 minutes, something's up. Ask a friend for help, reach out to a professor, and to be clear, I don't mean if one case in all of your 1L or all of your law school took more than 20 minutes. I mean if you're noticing consistently that at the 20-minute mark, maybe 30-minute mark, you're not grasping the gist of a case, seek help, okay? Because it's going to save you so much time misspent. It could be something as simple as starting off with the wrong section of the case. And or the wrong section, the least helpful, I'll say, sections of the case. And that could be subjective, by the way, as well. Some people they find good value in reading the facts first. For me personally, I suggest you go to more of the latter half of the decision first, so that you're able to see what's been decided. Even if you don't get it, you'll see the words and then you work backwards, then starting from the facts and the issues. Or you can start from the issues and then you go to the analysis. Those are usually found in the middle of a case. So that's my very first tip. Watch your time very carefully on a case-by-case basis. You'll notice the pattern. There's students that I went to school with. It would take hours for a certain case. How can you get far when the average professor, at least in my experience, can assign up to dozens of cases a week? And on top of that, you're taking, whether your school is semestered or year-long, you're taking 4, 5, 8 classes at a time. It's not going to happen. Watch the time, 20 minutes per case, okay? To get the big picture in the longer, Supreme Court style cases, and in the appeal or lower level cases, I think 20 minutes could even be enough to get the job done, okay? Now, we've talked about time per case. And by the way, set an alarm for that, because of course, how else are you going to know that you took more than 20 minutes? So set the timer. We've talked about the time per case. Next is time per day. Law school, unlike undergrad, for a lot of us, for a lot of you watching this video, and especially unlike high school, if you go back even further, I don't find to be one of those contexts where you can not read a thing for a month or not read a thing for the semester and then just binge last minute. This is not to say it's not possible to do well that way. Sometimes it can even be strategy to, out of let's say your 4 classes for the semester, take your time for the 2 that you find most challenging, most likely to result in a lower grade if you don't put that time into them. And sometimes you have to binge on a class. It happens. But that shouldn't be strategy. That shouldn't be what you look forward to doing. Not doing a thing for the semester and then binge studying. Okay, so to combat that, much like I suggested setting an alarm per case, literally per case, my second tip is to set those calendar reminders and set those alarms in terms of studying per day. You're in school and studying is your job at the moment. It might not be the most fun thing you've got going on, but it should be one of the most important things you have going on. And it's not necessarily, sometimes I'll have questions about, well, how much do grades matter? And by the way, I've posted a video on that as well. I'll link it down in the description. It's not necessarily a grade-focused approach. It's you want to understand what's going on. You want to understand why these cases have been decided the way they are. You want to be able to connect cases to each other. And that takes work, not just on your own, but in consult with others. However, as it pertains to the work you're putting in on your own, the week has 5 weekdays and 2 weekend days. If you're in a semester school where you have 4 classes per week, 4 out of 5 days to study for 2 hours a day is not only not the end of the world, but I strongly recommend it as a strategy, okay? And what that's going to do, and by the way, people study differently, it goes without saying. Imagine that sentence following every sentence I say in this video. These are, of course, suggestions, and what may have worked well for me and my circle of friends or colleagues may not work well for you, and that's okay. Maybe one thing here will inspire you, and that's okay out of all the items I'll mention. But if you have 4 classes in the semester and 5 weekdays in the week, 4 of those 5 days, you should have that calendar alarm, 1 class per day, okay? So, contracts on Mondays, property on Tuesdays, torts on Wednesdays, and, it's on you whether you want to give yourself the Thursday off or the Friday off. You make that choice, okay? Now, what's that 2-hour alarm within each day going to help us do? 2 or 3, but I say 2. I don't think 2 is cumbersome. There are students in law school that are working full-time. I know students in law school working multiple jobs full-time. It's all part of the spectrum of different backgrounds and experiences and lives coming across in law school, okay? But I also didn't know many people that couldn't find 2 hours in a 24-hour day to put toward their own studies. 2 hours is not at that threshold of being 5 or 6 hours of studying a day, and it's also not so insignificant that it won't make a difference. 2 hours will make a difference, and especially with the suggestion, my tip number 1, that each case you should be looking to get the gist of in around 20 minutes. 2 hours gives us time for a lot of cases. And when I say get the gist in 20 minutes, as pertains to tip 1, there's some cases you're going to get the gist of in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So these are averages, right? In 2 hours on average, maybe you do 10 cases. And whatever you don't do that day, whatever you don't get to in those 2 hours, it's okay. Don't feel bad about it. You can clump those little leftovers of time together at the weekend. So maybe out of the 2 hours, you needed 2:15 for contracts. That 15 minutes added to a Saturday morning or Sunday morning, okay? And maybe for torts, you needed 2.5 hours. You can add those little leftover bits on the weekend in a way that you're still giving yourself the ability to have a lifestyle and to have fun and to pursue hobbies and pastimes during the weekdays. But also, you're kind of beating the system here by putting something on paper every day. And that consistency and that effort is exactly how you build discipline. Make it muscle memory every day. And within every day, watch the time you spend on every case, okay? That brings me to my 3rd specific tip. And it kind of weaves in and out. All of these tips weave in and out because they have to. I think it'd be really odd if every tip I was giving contradicted the one before. These tips inherently have to work with each other to be successful and able to be cohesively implemented. So my 3rd specific tip is baby goals. And this one, again, ties directly to the 1st and 2nd tips. What do I mean by baby goals? Because there's a lot of ways to cross-cut this one. For example, when we're looking at the workload in a class, there are the cases, if we're really zooming in, all the different cases assigned within a class, but there's also the class itself big picture, and the class itself big picture is part of your semester even bigger picture. Set those baby goals of what I mentioned before, of understanding each case at the 20-minute mark, of taking care of each class for 2 hours a day. Set those baby goals without without letting yourself reach that stage where you are looking at a mammoth of 20 hours of work a week. Don't think of briefing these cases, and don't think of law school as taking 20 hours of homework a week. Think of it as taking 2 hours a day. You can find 2 hours a day when the average person spends multiple times that on social media every day. You can find 2 hours a day, and what's going to come out of that? You're going to become a strong learner. And these are skills that outside of school you will implement in daily life as well. And in this, through these 3 specific tips is the 4th one that I've mentioned a little bit, throughout, and I've certainly mentioned it in other videos as well. But if any of these tips, or let me say it this way, if you've put these 3 tips into place, this coming week, for a week or 2 weeks, and you're not getting any results, the 20-minute mark is leading you with incomplete work, the 2 per case, the 2-hour mark is leading you with incomplete work per class, like I mentioned, ask for help. Ask a professor, say you took this time for this class, where did you go wrong? Ask a classmate, and take asking a classmate one step further in terms of, do you want to split the work with that classmate? Okay, that's a strategy that I recommend as well. Of course, that strategy comes with the social implications of trusting each other, you and this classmate, trusting that the other is doing equally good work, trusting that one is not reading the cases line by line, but the other is just copying something senseless off the internet. But again, there's ways to check against this too. You can audit the work of your classmate once a week. And if you pick 1 or 2 cases a week, and every week, every case you're picking doesn't make sense, talk to your classmate, find a new one to work with, or make it work with the one you have based on, setting common expectations and goals as to how you will each arrive at the summaries. Okay, but look for help. It's all around you in law school. It can be intimidating to ask for help. It can feel annoying to ask for help. It can feel a whole range of emotions comes with asking for help, especially in a competitive setting such as law school. But it's there for you, and it's free, okay? People want to help. You're paying for the help. And guess what? It also will feel good for you once you help others as well. So if you start this circle of asking each other questions and helping each other out, you will see benefits from it. So I want to recap the 4 tips. Watch the time you're spending on each case. 20 minutes, you should have gotten the big picture, okay? Maybe 30, but if you haven't understood what the ratio is or what the ratio may be of a case at the half-hour mark, I don't think anything's going to change for you to get it at the 1 or 2 hour mark. It should not take that long, okay? And I can post a video another day on how to brief a case really well. So we can do that as well and handle that in another video. The 2nd tip was watch your time every day. Set a calendar reminder. There's no shame on it. It's you and your phone. Nobody else sees it. Set those calendar reminders every day of the week and put in some time. It will be so much better than having your 2 hell days, and when would they come? On the weekend, okay? Make some sort of life work balance for you as well while you're in law school. That'll of course only help all of these tips, and that'll only come through being disciplined and developing discipline as it comes to all these tips. Once you've gotten to a point where you know it's your 2 hours of the day every day for a case, a few weeks in, you are going to internalize that to the extent where you just know it's what you have to do that night. And if you miss out one night, you'll see the impact it has on you and how much you're going to want to get right back to it the next day. That's how we develop discipline. My third tip, I should say, was that of making baby goals for your work. And part of that is through consulting tips 1 and 2 and evenly distributing the workload. And the 4th tip was to seek help. The 5th thing I'll say is more of an anti-tip, and it's something you shouldn't, you should be very cautious of in law school, because one way to skirt all of these suggestions is to find yourself somebody else's summary, right? We've all been there. However, I cannot emphasize enough how many bad summaries there are out there. Even if you find a good one, I remember in law school coming across summaries that were given to me that it was made clear this is from an A student, okay? That A student might not think like you at all. They might not brief a case like you at all. So what good is that to you if that summary is basically in another language, okay? But even worse to you, I would suggest, are really bad summaries. I'm not going to name any platforms on here because I'm not here to bash any platforms. I'd rather focus on the positive suggestions I can provide you with. There's a lot of free pages, free mega global pages that we've all heard of that, you know, summarize cases when they have no business, you know, in law. They're just generalist platforms. So now they're giving you this case summary that you're going to take on an exam. How well do you think that's going to go? There's a lot of case summaries that are so verbose out there. There's just so many words, you'll never be able to apply it. And as a rule of thumb, if a ratio for a case is more than 1 to 3 sentence mark, chances are it's not correct, okay? There's a lot of summaries out there that are meant to get your attention as opposed to meant to help you and give something to you. So watch out for the bad summaries. And again, we can film a video specifically on what briefs a good case and in turn what makes for a good summary later down the road. I hope those tips are helpful for at least one of you watching this video. Feel free to continue to email me and ask me questions. I do get emails at my info@graphenebusinesslaw.ca. The firm gets emails there, and of course we check our emails regularly. And of course our website, graphenebusinesslaw.ca, for any inquiries. And you know, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.